And so, it continues. Hello there, writerly friend. Welcome back to Max's Writing Advice Q&A. In tonight's episode, I have a nice collection of writing questions sent by viewers like you and picked by the random number generator. It is the most fair way to do things. Before I go on anywhere, if you have questions you would like to send my way, leave it in the comments down below. Your question is as likely to be picked as anyone else. And before I go anywhere, allow me to give you the disclaimer as always and remind you that the following is merely just my advice, my opinion, and what works for me. Don't take it as gospel, instead take it as the ramblings of a silly person wearing a Cookie Cat shirt. You have no idea how much willpower it takes to not break out into the Cookie Cat song. But anyhow, with that silliness out of the way, let's dive right in. 3 questions, 3 minutes a pop. Let's do this. The first question goes a little bit like this. Hiya Max, question for you. How do you go about writing a book blurb? Do you write them yourself or get them professionally done? Any word/paragraph length stipulations? This is a good question. I haven't answered a question on book blurbs in a long while, so let's take it from the top. Timer, start! First question. Do I do them myself or do I get them professionally done? I have never seen anybody do a service like that. I mean, I guess there must be somebody out there. I mean, if there's a market for it, I would understand. I think it makes the most sense for you as the writer to write it yourself, since you are closest to the story, which may also make it a little bit hard, but I think it's nowhere near as hard or problematic as just handing your manuscript to somebody and be like, write me a book blurb. Also, it costs less money. My general course of action for writing a book blurb goes a little bit like this, okay? And I'll tell you the paragraph/word stipulations in a moment. I like to write it, let it sit probably for a day, read it again, chop as much of it as I can. As with writing, you want to make it a little bit, you trim it and make it shorter, and then send it to somebody you trust, somebody you know, somebody who understands you and your writing, hopefully someone who has read the book, and ask them what they think, and make adjustments based on their feedback. It's basically the same path as with writing now that I think about it, but that's how I go about doing things. As for stipulations, the following is not a hard rule, it's just the way that things have worked out for me now. I like to keep it as small paragraphs, 2 to 3 sentences at most. You want to lead the reader's eyes, because you don't want the reader to go to the store page or flip the back and just see a block. That's not very enticing. It doesn't seem palatable. It's not good stuff. You want small paragraphs, maybe a few small lines there to give you punchlines. As for a word length, this is, again, not a hard rule. Please don't quote me on this. Please don't treat this as the way things should be. I shoot for a general amount of around the idea of 150 words to 160 depending. I know, is that nothing? It is absolutely nothing, but we're talking about a book blurb. A book blurb is just a quick, like super quick, 10 to 15 second elevator pitch. You want to tell somebody what the story's about, get them interested, and get out of there. It's basically just quick and dirty, and I know that the hardest thing, and the timer is about to go off, but I'm gonna tell you this. The hardest thing for this is just to summarize. What is your story about? What is actually happening in the story? And I don't want to say like, make it sound awesome, but make it sound awesome. One of the things that I like to do is that I like to, when I'm writing it, get in the movie narrator voice. Once upon a time, he's an undercover cop in a quest for vengeance. Get into that voice. Get into that voice. Or another really good voice is the voice of the lady from the opening of The Lord of the Rings. That's also a really, really good voice. Just get into that character and sell the story. Sell it. Tell me how awesome it is, how interesting it is, in as few words as possible. Does that sound hard? Does that sound like a really daunting task? Yes, it is, but that's part of the process though. And honestly, hear me out on this, okay? By this point, you have spent so much time working on this novel, revising it, doing all these things. You can spend a day and a half getting this blurb out. You can send it to a friend. You can get their thoughts. You can make it sound good, okay? You have already done all of the heavy lifting. You can do this book blurb. Trust me, you got this, okay? Okay, and now for question numero dos. It goes a little bit like this. Max, what's the easiest way to make an outline of a novel or short story that one is writing? Nth timer, start. Quick question before I advance. Is this question about how to make an effective outline or an easy outline? I am going to assume that by easy you mean the one that gives you the least trouble, or the one that allows you to create the story in the most effective way without getting in the way of the actual storytelling. I hope that made sense. My advice is this. If you haven't seen my guide for how to plan a novel, there should be a link to it in the description down below. I talk about my entire planning/outlining process, but I'm gonna give you just the sneak peek right now. Though I really recommend you go check it out. It's a 50-minute workshop. I tell you everything, and I also hand you my best inspirational/writing advice. But that's not what you came here for, so let me give you my advice. And this is actually like a really good time to ask me, because I'm in the process right now of brainstorming an upcoming work. And I'm actually doing that thing where I need to sort out the events. In case you don't know, by the way, and I hope we're all using the same language here. An outline is a piece of paper or work that entails or works out the events that should maybe possibly hopefully happen in your story. You may note that whenever I talk about stuff, I don't say, this is what has to happen or what should happen. You may notice that I always say the things that hopefully should maybe, hopefully, possibly happen in the story. Why? Because this writing is the act of discovery, and in my personal experience, the instant I sit down to write, the outline goes out the window. So, what is the purpose of the outline? Why do we have it? We have it to have a little bit of a guide. It helps to have a map. It's just some sort of guide to see where we're going to be going. It may not actually be the plan to the point, but it's a general idea. So what I like to do is when I'm thinking about the story, especially if it's like a short story, it's way more understandable, I like to think in scenes. If you would prefer using index cards for this, that's way better. Index cards, and on each index card write a scene and what you think should possibly maybe happen in that scene. In this scene are two protagonists talking in a diner. What are they talking about? I don't know. I also want to have a scene of the character gets in a taxi and talks with the taxi driver. What are they going to talk about? Maybe about the stuff in the diner. Who knows? You work out the things that you want to maybe hopefully see happen in this story, and you arrange them as index cards in a timeline. And now that you have all of the events that you think should maybe possibly hopefully happen in the story, and you have them arranged in a timeline, look at it and ask yourself, are there any more scenes / events that need to happen, and where do they need to happen? Another good question to ask is to look at the beginning and at the end and ask yourself, is this the most effective point at which the story can start? Can it start earlier, later? Can it end earlier or later? And you want to create a really tight-knit collection of events. And once you're satisfied, dive into the writing. I would like to give you the fair piece of warning though that, again, the outline is just the guide, a general idea for what maybe should possibly hopefully happen in the story. Nothing else. The characters are the main players of the story, and they will most likely destroy half or so of your outline. It's okay. Remember, writing is the act of discovery. So once again, get your thoughts on index cards, arrange them in a timeline, ask yourself if it's perfect and good to go, and get writing, okay? So, today we had a question about book blurbs, a question about outlines, and the next following question is fitting in the idea that it doesn't fit in. This video has been a lot of odd questions, and I like it. I like answering questions that are a little bit out there, and this one is most definitely out there. How would you format an all-encompassing voice that seems to have no origin, but that everyone in a large area can hear? That's a good question! And I do feel that different writers will do it differently, especially if you are from the UK. There's a bunch of like different formatting things. I'm gonna tell you the way that I do it here in America. The way that I would do it goes a little bit like this. I have two questions for you and for anybody out there talking. This is actually a really good question because you ask yourself, how exactly do I write a voice that everyone can hear but nobody knows where it's coming from? And I have two questions for you that goes a little bit like this. First off, is the voice actually sounding in the world around them? Or is it a voice that they're hearing inside of them? Because what I would do for the first scenario is, if there's a voice that, let's say, the party members of this fantasy group of adventurers can hear, and it's a voice, and they all can hear it in the same area, and it's a physical voice that exists within the physical realm. In that case, I would treat it just like regular dialogue, and I would make sure, through narration, to spice up the dialogue, to give it dialogue tags, to explain that it is a big, strong, booming voice that they're hearing around them. A bunch of these little things, while formatting is really important, narration will lead the reader as well. That is what I think I would do in a situation in which the voice is physical and in the world around them. If it is somebody talking to them in their head, like for instance, Professor Xavier from the X-Men talking to everyone through telepathy. What I would do for that particular scenario, and it's a little bit complicated and I don't expect everyone to agree with me on this one, what I would do is that I would have quoted dialogue to indicate that it is somebody talking, but I would have it italicized to indicate that it's happening on the inside. Someone may argue with me, and that's okay. Writing is a little bit silly, and this is a good question because I don't think I'm 100% correct. I think that no matter what you would do, whether it is just regular dialogue to indicate that it is outside, or italicized to indicate that it is inside, you would still do narration. You will still, through narration, explain, they heard a voice deep inside of them, resonating not in the world around them, but in the world within them, something like that. You would still have to narrate. I think that you would still need to lead the reader, because no matter where you come from, no matter how much books you have read, different writers do formatting differently, so I actually really enjoyed this question because it made me think about the way that I do format. If you have your own thoughts on this question or your particular point of view on this, let me know in the comments down below. I think of all the questions today, the third one is like the most fun because I don't think I'm correct. I don't think I am 100% certain on this. I can only tell you how I would do things. So for the time being, if you have your thoughts on the questions that were answered today, let me know in the comments down below, as well as your very own questions for upcoming videos. For the time being, thank you for watching, thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me, and I will see you on the next episode.